Shabbat shalom, everyone. I hope you are doing well. This week's parsha is Lech Lecha. So again, we're only in the third parsha of the Torah, which is I know I keep saying this, but I just love the beginning of the Torah. So the first parsha, we have the creation story, we have Adam and Eve. Second parsha, we have Noach and the Ark, and that whole situation, the Tower of Babel, Migdal Babel, the Tower of Babel. And then now, in the third parsha, Lech Lecha, we meet Abraham and Sarah, Avraham and Sarai. Avram and Sarai at the time, later Avraham and Sarah. So at the beginning of this parsha, we meet Avraham for the first time, and he is told by God to leave his home and go to a place that God will show him. So I'm just going to share my screen. As the text says, and the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you." Okay. So oftentimes this phrase and this situation, Abraham just kind of going and doing what God asked of him, is talked about as if it's an example of blind faith. And of course, famously, there's another situation that Abraham is associated with that has to do with blind faith, and that's the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. This situation, God says, "Go from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to a land that I will show you." Is that blind faith? Just to go, leave the thing that you're comfortable with, the place that you know, your family, and go to a place that only God, can tell you. The next sentence tells us that it's not really blind faith. God kind of comforts Avraham, "And I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will aggrandize your name, and you shall be a blessing." So why does this sentence make everything better? Our commentators, Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, comments that "I will make you into a great nation" addresses the fact that when someone travels, it's less likely that they are going to have children. That it's less likely that they're going to, it's just harder to have children when you're traveling, I suppose. The second one, "And I will bless you." The worry when you're traveling also is that you won't have so much money, that you're not in your stable place where you have your money, where you have your business. And God is saying, "Do not worry. I will make sure that you have children, and I will make sure that you have money. And then I will aggrandize your name." And this has to do with the fact that sometimes when we leave a place that we're comfortable with, we're maybe big fish in a small town, and we know people and people know us, and it feels good to be known by other people. But God is saying, "I will make you great, even if you aren't in the place that you're comfortable." And the third one, "You shall be a blessing." It's such a beautiful phrase. It's a lovely phrase, but what it's really saying is that you will have all the blessings that your ancestors have had. And again, just a little review, there's the generation of Adam and Eve, 10 generations later is Noach, and 10 generations later is Avraham. So that's where we are now. We're 20 generations into the existence of the Torah. So Avraham chooses to go. They leave, and then it says that they leave, and Abraham went as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him, and Abraham was 75 years old when he left Haran. Okay, this is weird. We are told that Abraham, when God comes to him, is actually 48. He's born in 1948, the year, biblical year of 1948, which you are correct. That is the year that Israel was founded. The first Jew and the first Jewish state were born in the same year. Crazy. Not a coincidence, I'm sure. Okay, so we're told that Abraham is 48 when God comes to him. Okay, but then why, when they leave Haran, is Abraham 75? This is because Abraham isn't leaving Haran when God comes to him. God comes to him and he lives in Ur of the Chaldees, or I don't really know where that place is, but it's different. Haran is a different place. So he leaves, goes to Haran for a little bit, and then after he's, another 25 years later, 27 years later, finally leaves and goes to the land of Canaan. So what does this mean? So Haran, the city, is the name of it has, let's see, where does it say? Yeah, it has a chet. One of Abraham's brothers that died is Haran with a hey, I believe. And what we think perhaps that Abraham was still grieving his brother, and so when he was on his way to Canaan, on his way to Israel, he passes the city called Haran and decides to stay for a little bit. And we also learn that Abraham's father, I think, dies in Haran. And what is this? Again, it's that this family is still mourning their son, Haran, in the city of Haran. Perhaps they named the city Haran after him. We don't really know. But this is kind of just a very sort of a niche, small example of mourning in the Torah. Okay, Abraham and Sarah leave, blah, blah, blah. They're on their way. And then near the end, they go through a lot of different situations. They go down to Egypt and they have people, there's some scary situations, and Abraham has to pretend that Sarah's his sister, and there's all these things, all these kings that they have to interact with. But then, after all these scary things happen, God comes to Abraham and says some nice things. So, okay, so here we go. And he took him outside and said, "Please look heavenward and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So will be your seed." It's kind of a beautiful idea. It's like, God, things are going badly for me. And so God's like, come. Look upon the stars. Look how many people, that's a really comforting, very beautiful thought. I can imagine that it's very calming. Okay, here we go here we go and having the confirmation of where Abraham actually came from. So it's weird that we're told God came to Abraham at age 48, and then when he was 75 when he left Haran. Okay, well, he didn't start in Haran. He started in Ur of the Chaldees. Again, don't really know. Not really sure. But either way, we see that Abraham left Ur, stayed in Haran, and then got on his way. So his journey wasn't like immediately he left. He said, "God, guess whatever you need." Perhaps he was unsure. Perhaps he needed just time to be with his family. These things are kind of just like you have to read into it to really get it. Okay, great. So there's lots of things that go on. And then at the end of the Parsha, we are told about Sarah's struggle with infertility. So it says that Sarah and Abraham lived together for 10 years, and when she could not bear him a child, she had him marry his maidservant Hagar. So famously, Hagar and Abraham have a child. That child is Ishmael, who is said to be the father of Islam. So this is where sort of the split of Islam and Judaism happens, that Islam splits off with with Isaac, who's born, 10 years later, from Sarah and Abraham, and Hagar has Ishmael with Abraham. And again, the patriarch is still Abraham, so that's where we split off. But so Sarah, we're told, is this very righteous woman. She's one of the matriarchs. She's one of the imahot. So huge, it's a big deal. But she does something that's not so great. When Hagar is able to have a child, it is said that in the Torah that Hagar no longer saw Sarah as important in her eyes. And Sarah is very upset about this, and she tells Abraham to send Hagar away with their child Ishmael. And this kind of reminded me of a show that I just finished watching called The Patient on Hulu. It's with Steve Carell. He plays a Jewish therapist, and the show is very shockingly Jewish. Honestly, I think that everyone should watch it. It's very interesting. Very, honestly, really, I felt that was very accurate. A lot of parts of it. But it was just very moving. And basically, not to ruin anything, but basically a therapist grows to have more sympathy for a serial killer than he has for his son who decides to become an Orthodox Jew. And it's interesting because he's this therapist who's supposed to be so unbiased and very neutral, and he's not able to really be neutral with his own family. He's really kind of irrational with his own family. And it reminded me of this because Sarah is this great woman. She's known for being just this righteous, beautiful woman. But then when she's not able to have children and someone else is, she's really horrible to that woman. And I think maybe that's a reminder that even people who are righteous and who we look up to have flaws and are human. And that's the whole point. We're not perfect. We aren't gods. We're not angels. We're humans, and that's the point of creation, is that we're flawed and we have to fight to be good people. And that means stumbling sometimes. So that's my message from the story of Sarah and Hagar. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. And if Sarah was right, and if Hagar was right, and if Abraham was right to have listened to his number one wife when his number two wife was being rude to his number one wife. I'm curious. But thanks so much for listening. Shabbat Shalom, and please, God willing, I will see you next week.